It gotta be. I know what it is. That glare come from, what do you call it? Screen. The screen that got cracked on. I mean the screen cover thing. Anywho, we'll give an honor to source, the creator, making this possible. I gotta clean up some stuff. What did it yeah. Really ready to lay down. I do not want to wash these dishes. But anywho, what's that getting at? Let's give honor to the source, the creator, ancestors, known and unknown. Of course, I keep wanting to position myself differently. Is this better? I think I dig that. Yeah, no, I've been speaking lately about like empathy. I had got a lot of clarity on even more so of that. And what's so vital about it is in guarding your heart, in doing healing, in like facing like parts of yourself and so forth, especially like protecting the inner child, setting boundaries, and especially if you have children, as you do your inner work, like as you protect your inner child, this is where the empathy that's returning, where it's so important how the healing reveals parts of us where it seems like our innocence was removed, the parts of us that make us shape and form who we are, self-expression, our personality, our emotions, our mental, all those different things where our innocence were removed and snatched. This is where we have not felt safe. And when you're talking about different parts of people, where you're talking about security, that reflects inner stability, emotional unavailable, where people then expose themselves or not, just attach themselves unhealthily to anyone because they didn't get that emotional support. So then as we learn and learn more about ourselves, I've learned that in holding space for the parts of me that not even just wasn't loved, it wasn't received, and the parts of me that wasn't embraced, whether that's like the inner identity of the feminine archetype. And now I start to realize that's the very thing I want to protect. That's the very thing I want to protect from anybody and everybody who, me knowing how that feel, especially like learning now to have more of a regulated nervous system. Coming from a dysregulated nervous system, I realized you now it's like your heart, your being, your whole aura, your essence is like a detector now of what's not safe. I don't care if it's a spouse, a partner, anybody. It's like now you have to guard that, but it's more like protected, not only spiritually, but emotionally, mentally, and so forth. And I also realized, how those who can relate with having such a big heart, and not being able to feel like they relate to the world around them. It's not that people don't have love, because this word love is so oversaturated. I keep telling y'all there's parts. People can love people and still do things that is not of love, or that like they can have love to an extent, because meaning that You know, there's a saying that goes like, you love the idea of me. But if you haven't really met yourself to the depths of loving certain versions of you that, you know, maybe you didn't grow up in the best environment and so forth, and you still hold on to that, you're not going to be able to love or reciprocate that part if you never have met yourself to the depths. And this is most of humanity, especially when I be telling y'all about the baby boomer thing, where again, these are not generations that came from empathy, empathetic people. I can easily see how now, even from my experience, seeing how people judge people, and easily just make that clear judgment or get that clear clarity on the fact of, I know where this is going. I know exactly where this is going. And again, this is not about being perfect. This is about coming to the self-realization, like, why the fuck you don't want to be around people? Why you realize, like, your whole time your intuition was already telling you, like, you know, all these different things. Hold on 1 second. So yeah, like what I was saying was, I was getting much clarity of even the fact of a lot of us growing up, when you realize, like, I don't care if you, like, I'm being real, bro. This shit is wrong. I'm called to speak about these things, no matter how uncomfortable they are. How can you say that you grew up in environments, people who were, I mean, this is real, militant background, warlike consciousness, displaying wounded masculinity, and then now you're seeing a lot of these people getting their karma because what they feel like they were fighting for, their country and so forth, all these things, and I'm speaking about the people who, you know, let me be very specific, like slaughtering people out of, like, to say you go on somewhere and do something, and you're doing it from a place for the country, for whatever it is, for freedom and all like this, and never questioning the fact of how some of the, what y'all call veterans, and what they uphold, and, you know, then hearing messages from people who say that when they went places and they realized, like, they will tell you how the, you know, certain people, like a country, like literally bully their way through things or try to, you know, they initiated certain things. And then for people to say that their parents or grandparents are empathetic people, how? I ask myself, how before you go and to start something or declare whatever illusion of war on someone, that there's no sense of emphasize, like trying to emphasize with whatever it is. It's just like someone going out and say, hey, I'm just going to decide to go, knowing that some people, ancestors, you're just going to go and exterminate people or go bully someone just because you feel entitled. No empathy of how that's going to affect the mother, and so forth. We're coming from generations where a lot of our mothers didn't have empathy. And then with that, for some of us, no one had empathy for our mothers. So you can see why certain women treat men the way they do, certain men treat women the way they do, because it's like a byproduct or continue, like a reenactment almost. When you don't have the matriarchal protecting the sons that grow into the patriarchal, as well as then that continues the cycle of the patriarchal boys or growing into men who don't, which starts young with the men who don't even protect the little girls who fight with them very young, but they're not brought up to protect, to remind them like how, you know, these little girls, these daughters are to be guided and protected because they are the women that are going to usher in the children, these souls that are coming in. So again, when you haven't had a country, again, a nation can rise no higher than its woman and or daughters, the daughters that are going to grow into womanhood. When you have had women forget about their childhood, and when you have had men to just push this illusion of power and to make them silence themselves, then what ends up happening is that you're only creating more of what? A cycle of people who don't have empathy for the women who have been raped, you know what I'm saying, who have been molested, who have been abused and so forth. And so that's when people turn a blind eye and say, oh, it's none of my business. They don't run and protect. They don't protect the daughters anymore. You know, they don't protect the mothers. It's everybody for themselves, and that's what's going to destroy people right now. I'm just a message. That's what's going to take. You're going to realize the very thing that you've been following when it comes to this patriarchal society is the very thing that's going to lead so many people to their demise. You're going to realize, like, if you have people with warlike consciousness that's all for themselves, men that are just so caught up in their riches, their whatever it is, their material things and so forth, and don't have an inner connection to the feminine archetype, then my darling sister, no matter what color creed you are, a lot of men who are being so consumed by their practices in the arts, whether religiously or whatever else, that get so consumed. And this is why the father being removed from the family was so vital. Everybody always talk about the protection. It's more than just the protection. It's much more deeper. Because what ends up happening is that once you remove the father, he no longer has developed a sense of emotional stability. And then when he has no one protecting him, such as the woman who pretty much mirrors, and the daughter mirrors that emotional resonance to him, that daughter is different from the mother and the daughter because the daughter is more of a grounded energy to where it grounds him into his existence or his physical. The mother being that the mother of the children, or the woman in herself, she is more as the lessons he already had to go through, that realm of connection, partnership, relationship, so forth, sex and all that stuff, all those things that keep them together to grow. And then once that child comes in, it completely changes the whole different realm of things. There's a different approach on life. Because when you look at royal energy, I tell you, mother, son, father, daughter. So again, removing the father is removing that air element, that spirit of the family. And again, everyone represents something that's very significant. The logic of the family, you know, because men with Mars ruled, and we go to logic, we're visual first. The woman, being that she's more in tune and she's water aspect, emotions, she feels first. Now, what do you have now presently? You have a lot of women who are more, you know, the imbalances come in. It's not that nothing's wrong with them. Where the imbalance comes in is that you see a lot of women try to be more logical on their approach rather than feeling. And typically, if they're imbalanced or they're not stable within, they're thinking first, or they're overthinking. So that disconnect emotionally, they're more using the brain rather than the balance and of, you know, because men master logic, women master emotion. So when they're not connected to that feminine archetype, they're disconnected from the emotion, then that wounded masculinity that's displayed from that wounded femininity that's just going, her way of displaying what you see will just be this because it will be like her actions just will show you again the lack of balance that she has emotionally, to where she begins to not think or feel for everyone, emphasize for everyone. Mostly if she has a disconnect, she don't feel for herself first. She hasn't learned, depending on her upbringing, what it is to be able to hold space for herself. So why should I care about you? I'm gonna do my own thing type attitude. And let's say you know, women that are at home and, you know, house mother, that's still a different part, still similar energy, because a lot of them are not living out what they're supposed to do. So their silence is just completely different. But what you will have, let's say, in a different demographic where women who don't have men around, they're vocalizing that will be coming from a more hurtful or suppressed, you know, place, but it's not coming from an empathetic place, because due to the fact of so long that their voice have been silenced due to trying to do everything, grandma, mama trying to do everything and so forth, that they're not at peace, or they're not honoring the feminine archetype. So what ends up coming out, the way of how they approach it, how they word it, how they, you know, they don't go to it, well, they're not acknowledging the emotion is there, but when it comes out, it's impulsive. So they don't care what they say. They don't realize how important, because again, due to the fact of a lot of mothers never having empathy, someone ever having empathy for them, they sure as fuck ain't gonna have empathy for you. That doesn't mean they're not having sympathy, but for them, how it, you know, let's say when a father goes to jail or something happened, and typically, depending on the upbringing, if the cycle is similar to where a mother and father has went away, or the grandma never had this and never had this, then that's where I've noticed into adulthood where a lot of women demonstrate. That's why they brag so much about a man or having a man, but it's like it's this boastful aspect that they're not aware of, because it literally still, I'm not saying you can't speak about your husband or spouse and stuff. What I'm saying is that a lot of bragging about, like, oh, he has this, he has this, he has this, that's not really honoring the feminine aspect of what's understood don't need to be explained. And the world has, and again, this is where I've seen displayed in certain places and demographics where a lot of women who are single or women are married, but you see how some women boast marriage, you know, how they do the ring stuff. I'm just giving y'all demonstrations on behavior, learned behavior. Every woman want to be married. Not everyone, but notice the trend of everyone wants to be married during a time where everybody wants a ring, the biggest ring, all this other stuff. All this stuff is just a form of, like, again, I'm just telling you from a man's perspective that has learned the importance of emotional intelligence. To us, that doesn't matter because we're simple. Men and women are simple. It's simple. For some of us, a lot of it has to do with performance. And then a lot of women are putting on a performance in front of other people, and a lot of what they're doing, their performance, is deep rooted in their insecurities and their inability to really accept who they are. So they have to boast about it. If it was up to men, we don't care about stuff like that. We don't care about stuff like that. And if we do, it's the reason why is because, again, it's what women have enabled. It's what women have allowed. It's what they have allowed into their world, to seep into their world, which is whatever belief system or idea of how you should be for a man, how he should be for you, you know, all these different things that, again, most people have no idea what it is to even, for that, oh, that's thing horribly, for their inner child to even mesh. I'm telling you, I've been having so much of a lot of self-realization and so forth. I'm learning that it don't even matter what someone look like. Can your inner child get along? What does that mean? For some of you, this concept is new to you. And what I mean is new to you is that for some of you that have experienced like traumas or whatever, or whether you grew up around, like I said, you could have had both fathers there and so forth. So where I was continuing was that, I don't know why I say both fathers, but both guardians. Like I said, it can look different for a lot of people, meaning like if you did grow up in a home with a father and a mother, that's great and all. But let's say you grew up in an environment which typically a lot of people that came from baby boomers or whatever, that was militant background, traveled a lot and so forth. Again, it's not blaming nobody, it's not pointing fingers, because you were born into what you were born in. Everyone come here to learn lessons. Where I'm getting at is this: how do you know when I says, you know, when it comes to people inner childs meshing together, the reason why this is so important, and you know that's why it's mentioned a lot, to where it's so important for you to know someone's background or how they grew up, is because what this is saying is that eventually they will expose. Exposure is like what's hidden, what you don't see beyond the surface, beyond all this superficial shit on how to be with someone and how to connect and so forth, and all this manifesting in person, all that shit. Yeah, you think that's cool and all, but it's much more deeper, because when you have dealt with someone or dealing with someone, let's say you come from two different demographics and so forth, some person with money, some person didn't come with money, their approach to life might be different. Someone who grew up around funds, someone who didn't, someone who was abused, someone who wasn't. What ends up happening, or what could possibly happen, is that if not faced, you got to realize you and that other person still carries a little boy and girl, little girl and boy inside of them. And as you start to get in a relationship, you got to realize, like, this person has learned some type of behavior, and whatever their background is, they learned it through whomever they were connected to. Like I said, you could have grew up in a militant background, traveled a lot. Then you could have had someone who just stayed in their hometown most of their life. They may not be as adventurous as you. You could have someone, like again, who didn't grow up in a lot of fun, but you grew up having a lot of friends. You could have had someone that had siblings and this person didn't. Again, it's all saying that the fact of, can your inner child mesh? Can you get along with each other? And that's what this comes down to for a lot of people. They start to realize, like, damn, I've been in something, or some people even have had kids, and especially for, I would say, for a lot of women, because, you know, women tend to, like, not all, but women tend to just experience naturally, depending on their upbringing, they leak. The first thing for them has a lot to do with attention, and attention is not something bad or good. It's more so when you realize, like, a woman that didn't grow up around an attentive father, or who grew up around a father and a mother who were emotionally unavailable, then that means that they were not attentive to their emotions. So therefore, when she grows up into relationships, whether she knows it or not, because the little girl has never left her, she still's gonna look for that shit. And then when you have a woman who, again, who isn't aware of her emotions or emotionally unavailable, or she don't even realize it, she's not gonna connect with someone, or you'll see this happen a lot. She'll say, oh, or you'll see this thing like, oh, men are so sensitive, men are so sensitive. It's not that he's so sensitive. It's the fact of you never been around men. If you had a militant father, or a father who hid his emotion, or a father who was emotionally unavailable, so guess what? You're not going to naturally know how to connect with a man who's in tune. That's not anyone's fault. It's a part of learning people. As you learn in even connections and so forth, you'll start to realize, like, damn, this little boy or girl did not receive certain things growing up. So their approach to life will be completely different. Like I said, a lot of people, grandparents and stuff, they were in a lot of stuff to where grandmothers who stayed in marriages and abusive relations or whatever it is, they stayed in shit so long that their voice was silent. And a lot of them sat back and said nothing, and they took it to the grave. They literally took it to the grave and suppressed it. Or what ended up happening, they end up having your grandmother end up having your mother through the same fucking, in the same relationship. Because that's how trauma is continue, intergenerational trauma. Because most of us who are probably alive right now are carrying intergenerational trauma from baby boomers. I mean, that's just what the fuck it is. There's no ignoring it. And again, through experience, I've learned that just learning through people, why would I expect my mother to emphasize with what I'm going through if she never had no one emphasize for her? This is what happens with a lot of women too. Some of them are coming from mothers who never had no one have empathy for them, so they don't know how to connect with you as a daughter. They don't know how to have, their emotions are all over the place. They're impulsive. They come out and say things, and they never apologize. You know why people never apologize? Because you know what apologies come from? Is when you're empathetic. It's when you have empathy. A lot of people don't know how to do it. That's why you see a lot of generations of people who use religion as a scapegoat. They'll use a religious figure such as Jesus, Allah, whomever it is, whatever religion, just to escape from apologizing. Ain't that crazy? People will use that to keep from actually emphasizing with themselves, putting themselves. And that's why I feel like how much religion has done a number on people. Like, especially women. They will go, instead of emphasizing with their child, they will look externally for some type of source of something instead of apologizing to themselves and their children. Bro, why I gotta take it to someone else when this person ain't did this to me? I'm coming to your ass and telling you what happened to me. And then for you to tell me to go take it to someone else that I ain't even met personally, or take it to God. The thing is with that, it's another form of conflict avoidance. There's no conflict resolution, because most people are afraid of that. They've been running from their trauma, so that they're conflicted with what's going on with them. So of course they're not gonna wanna hash things out or find some type of solution, because they never have found a solution with themselves. So again, a lot of us are starting to realize, especially a lot of millenniums being a bridge to the younger people, these generations, because a lot of us we didn't come from people that were empathetic. We're coming from people that have been at war with people, most importantly have been at war with themselves. And most of their life, their inner childs have never felt safe. Come on, bro. That's why I see a lot of people tense up. I see a lot of people are afraid to be around a lot of people, because let's say indigenous people have never, like, let's say this. If I'm never given a reason for a person that don't look like me to be afraid and scared, but over time that they have developed a belief system, that's something to do with them. Why does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with me? What traumatically has happened to you, or what have you convinced yourself not to be able to get along with people like that? That's some deep shit that people ignore. That's why I tell myself how people find so many excuses to really get along with people. Y'all find every excuse, but then it ain't about it being the hero. I'm okay with being the villain by not doing what y'all doing. Like I said, I chose to face fears and not be afraid to meet other people, travel other places, because y'all will disguise yourself as a hero saving the day by thinking that, oh, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, and everybody's okay, and everybody... Bro, fuck nah. I'm not even going to pretend like shit is cool and all like that, because I choose to rewrite the story. And I'll accept that villain aspect. Like I said, we didn't come from a lot of things. Let me get back on it. Again, for a lot of you that could have grew up with, let's say, overprotective fathers, strict fathers, and some that were in religion, military, and all that other stuff, y'all gotta realize you carry the resonance of both. You carry the personality, especially, I mean, I don't know how much of this is true, but I can see it. It's like when they say that genetically, the children carry more of the DNA of the mother, but I can also see certain things where the daughter carries a certain personality or certain traits of the father. So that makes a lot of sense. Think about women who never had a father. And how easy it is to cope with a religious figure of a father to replace that. And for some people who did have a father, like I said, it could have been emotionally unavailable. Some of your connections can reflect the fact of how you went on so long in a marriage or relationships and so forth, and you're trying to convince this person to emphasize or to have empathy, or really they can never meet you as deep as you want them to. And that reason being is like a lot of people blockages, or a lot of their childhood development, a lot of the things that they're afraid to face subconsciously, you know, their fears or childhood things that they never overcome, you know, whatever is unhealed eventually peaks through whatever their career settings, through whatever they, you know, even, I'm telling you, one of the biggest things it'll peak eventually is when a man has children. Because that's a whole different realm, because that child that comes in pure, or, you know, comes in with this unapologetic personality, you know, soaking up the world and so forth, and it's learning to try to have direction, and it's looking to you also as a guardian, just as well as it's showing you how to connect to yourself again. Like I said, you don't have to be a biological father and so forth. We all still carry mother-father energy. And so for people that have been around these, you know, children and so forth, I see why a lot of people who just get in it for the money and the business, and you see all this shit with child and, you know, all this stuff that's happening, being exposed right now, is because these people can't emphasize this is an energy being cleansed right now of people that hearts are not even for, don't have, like, they have things within themselves, their own spiritual warfare. They got shit going on to where they're not finna emphasize. They don't care to. That's why people can go, folks, whatever spiritually they're going through, that's why certain shit can just happen like this, and, you know, people don't bat an eye. Until now, a lot of stuff is coming up. So, again, a lot of people don't realize how much they grew up. They could have had the luxury of a father having things and giving to them financially, but again, still be emotionally unavailable. And then now, some of us, well, people having to learn through karma, through lessons, of how they've been in relationships and connections. Where for some of you, if you want to get into astrology and certain signs and stuff, is that it was something I was picking up on earlier. How like you may be like, what was it like? You probably can outrun. You think you can outrun karma, but you can't outrun the elements. And the elements is like is a representation of like how we come in and we represent things in astrology, like certain signs, and those are elements. Like those are things that represent, hold the energy, hold how people say Scorpio, water, Cancer, all these are elemental aspects that come to shape and reshape our life, reinvent our lives, and so forth. One thing I realized, like even the concept around how people say, "Oh, you're a Scorpio," or this and that, and I'm like, learning more that we hold all the energy, but naturally I'm just a deep person. I'm an in-depth person, so due to this, whatever negative connotation or whatever perspective people have, it's to learn. What is this teaching me? Meaning, like, you can connect with someone. Let's say if you aren't into astrology, but the ones who are, that for one, someone's coming in with water, a lot of water. That means they're coming in with a lot of feminine energy, either to get you back into the flow of your creative aspect. You maybe go through something karmically, to see within yourself, to go to learn more about yourself, to maybe clear something emotionally, ancestrally, generationally. Because that's been one of the biggest things I tell you, like when you have family, or when you create a tribe, or you create children, whatever through their experiences, whether it works out for you with the person or not, the beauty of it is that can you be able to see the lesson in what is this teaching me? What is this teaching me about myself? Because every outcome doesn't have to be what we not so much need it to be, but always not how much we need it to be, but what's of the highest good for the divine, like what to elevate, to be able to, like, again, one thing I realized, like connecting to people of certain energy, like when it comes to like astrology or whatever, it just reveals a part of me, like, whether they're unevolved in that aspect or whatever, I start to realize, like, okay, one of my greatest things were going through connections where a lot of them was teaching me vital lessons before I had children, of like learning. When I talk about the mother womb, it just so happened to be that the mother of our children is a Scorpio, and the reason why that is vital has a lot to do with the energy of the emotions, and then the matriarchal, and also what you come to learn from that person through that person. We think it's just surface. No, it's an internal thing, because Scorpio, it represents like where it's ruled by Pluto, and it goes through different phases and stages in life to where you're like having this rebirth through your emotions, whether you're purging, whether uncomfortable things of, like, again, it can look different for men and women. For me, the mother womb was teaching me about how to go from the wounded masculinity, the feminine archetype that was just going with the flow of things, which wasn't really balanced out, but it was showing me like how the wounded masculinity that I was displaying through learned behavior patterns, or what was repressed or suppressed, was just evolving me, or me learning different parts of myself that I could not hide from anymore. The repressed emotion were a sexual trauma, or the repressed emotions over the years where I suppressed it through basketball, or certain things that wasn't really what I had to do, what I had to experience, but more now using that where being overly sexual, over sexualizing people, or overexerting myself, hypersexualizing, I think that's what I'm going to say, hypersexualizing like how I viewed myself and then the world. So that emotional aspect, and again, this is beyond the fact of what people look like. That still plays a part, and what I mean by that is like creed and color and so forth. That's a major part, but it's on a deeper level. You start to really realize like I have an opportunity to grow within myself, and then even evolving and becoming more aware once you get past the steps of just not just connecting with someone, but you get to that romanticizing, and you know, most people don't take in consideration of like how I met this person, what was the grounds of how I met this person and so forth. And then let's say sometimes you think you know someone, and then you realize like as they grow, a lot of us didn't know how to choose partners. And that's one thing I was talking to someone earlier about, like as men, it's like when you grow up in a hypersexualized society, when you grow up in environments where things are led just like by lust, there's no structure. When you grow up in music and environments where, again, things that are not prioritizing, really building things upon structure, then what ends up happening is that you realize like family, when you don't have an emotional supportive foundation, all of these things play a part into what's really going to happen in your adulthood. And only the real ones know, like, as a cycle breaker, generational curse breaker, like, oh shit, I really gotta face this and do this inner work because ain't nobody else gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna be real, ain't nobody else gonna do it, because you'll realize the same pattern that you was in. If you pay close attention enough, your family's been doing it too. I'm telling you. If you pay close attention to the traditions, to a lot of stuff, if you're truly here to come here and change the trajectory, and you knowing you have this knowingness, that can be almost like an uphill battle, because sometimes, you know, you don't have the courage, you don't have the strength, it seems, you don't have the support system and so forth. And again, if you're not coming from generations, or again, if you look at the last 50 to 60 years on even how music, how the media and so forth, where you have had women who, again, in media, in the industry, in all these different things where they come out and talk about what they go through or what they went through, no one emphasizes them. They're attacked, they're threatened. Some even sacrifice, like unalive. Like, it's so many different things that people don't know, to where how wicked or how unrighteous stuff has been to just where a lot of stuff coming out now, to where being that the shift is happening and the healing is taking place within us all, you start to realize like, damn, this has been a fucked up like collective. We all have been a part of stuff. You know how you can be a part of stuff and then people just overlooking like, yeah, man, it ain't that big deal. Just you know, just get it off. Just go ahead and pay that person off. Go do this, go do that. You know, and the only thing you're doing, you're just continuing karma. It doesn't matter who has come along and try to make it seem like wanted to cover up things like it's all good. No, it ain't about it being all good. It's the fact of what you thought was never going to come to the light. It is. It is. And that's in all levels, whether family, globally, everything. The world is just seeing a reflection of who it is. The mirror is being held up to everybody. That's what judgment is. Your children are your mirror, your spouse, your partner, all these different things. And again, as you elevate, you start to realize, or as you start to go deep within yourself, you will be easily be able to recognize, like I said, how either you can outgrow relationships and partnerships and so forth, because all of that shit is like a spiritual thing. It's like a contract. Some people like had the opportunity to do things completely different. Everyone has, other than children who are at that place where they're still learning how to guide or they have a knowing too, but they're still are mirrors and guides for us. Like we're learning through them. I'm, you know, um, we're learning through them, and they're learning from us. And so like it's deep than what like it's what's been portrayed, bro. I tell bro like, man, it's deep. It's amazing. And then once you start to really do that inner work and face a lot of stuff, it ain't just about not being around people. It's about also wanting to build community again, wanting to expand, but also approaching life, dipping your toe out there again, like, you know, trying to find something stable and trusting and hoping, like, man, are there people out there like me? Are there people out there that have done the inner work? And there are, because none of this is in vain. The world wants you to believe that, especially like when you're going through karmic shit or learning your lessons with family. They especially want you to believe, depending on where they at mentally and emotionally, that they're all you need and nothing else. And a lot of us know that ain't the truth. Like I said, once especially mothers and men, but I'm gonna speak on the mothers. Like, there's a lot of things that happen with them too when they go through that shift with coming into motherhood. Again, when a lot of them never had no one emphasize with them, that means that you had a lot of women who have never had the opportunity to, when you can't emphasize, when a country can't have empathy for the mothers and children and so forth, they don't care what happens to them. And so that's basically saying you don't care what happened to the country, the environment, the family, the structure, because the mother is the first teacher. So you don't care what happens. That's why it's like how amazing it is for women that are like, I don't have the room to judge women that are single mothers or who are doing things, or I don't have the room, because some of their hearts is, even though they might not do everything perfectly, they make mistakes too, but some of their hearts are just as pure as motherfuckers who are married with children. I'm telling you, bro, like I said, y'all, the world will make you believe just because a woman ain't with a man or with someone that she's unhappy. No, that's far from the truth. I'm gonna tell you like now, men go through the same thing too. Shit, I myself have learned that. It ain't even, you get to a place like it ain't even got nothing to do with being with someone. You just want to be with yourself. I know somebody gonna be like, man, that's what? You just get to a place where you go through a healing phase, but there's different stages to things to where the world will make you believe that men don't also experience things similarly to women. We just do it differently. But that's what makes us so unique and inseparable, is that we do things similarly. I go through abstinence or whatever they call it, like restraining from sex, to learn more about myself. But they'll make it seem like women are supposed to do that all the time. No. I like to, all those things that's made out to be only women do and so forth, again, with being in tune with myself will just show me like, no, I need that too. Same thing with, but again, the world will twist it to make it seem like, oh, he's sensitive or he's this. I am sensitive. I'm sensitive about my shit. Meaning that, and I'm sensitive about protecting myself and protecting myself from people like that who automatically want to pass judgment or realizing like, oh, we just don't resonate. I ain't for you. That's fine. I just realized my inner child, we just don't mesh. We just don't connect. That's cool. Because I can already see you as problematic. But again, the world will make it seem like, and it's funny, that has convinced women to realize like men are not supposed to be in tune. He too feminine. And then the misconception around that, it's like, y'all immediately make it seem like emotions are horrible or emotions are something that we're not supposed to have. The only danger in with that is that a man that does not know how to manage them. And even with that, a woman that don't know how, what's even more dangerous, a woman that don't know how to emphasize for the man who don't know how to manage the shit. I'm not saying go through stuff where you have to like not even just baby him, but you hold a mother energy, but a lot of you hold a distorted mother energy. That's why you're not able to emphasize. Some of you don't even emphasize for yourselves, let alone your sons. So then when they grow into fatherhood and they start making certain decisions that you really wouldn't want them to make towards women, that reflects what you have shown him. That's why you have seen so much violence and abuse and all this other stuff that have happened in the world, because honestly, had my mother showed me different things, I don't think I would have approached things the way I've done. And that's not to say, again, like I immediately went out here like, oh, I'm just going to get angry and hit people. No, it never came from that place. It came from a place where, again, with men, we demonstrate or do things completely different through action because we're ruled by Mars. So if I haven't acknowledged what has happened within me and I don't honor it, and then I don't love the parts of myself like that and learn to have empathy for it, then I will, in that hating that part of myself, I will display that hatred towards other people. And especially if I don't, which you see majority of men, and I'm gonna get on women too, or just the fact of how you can see how a lot of them do on their platforms or whatever they do, even through religion and all these other things. It's a clear indication how they don't honor the feminine archetype, which are emotions, nurturing, things that happen within, their identity within. You will see that they don't really have a sense of surety. And even if they're in a career setting, even if they are doing other stuff for so long, that's a part of still going with the flow until something, divine intervention comes in. Let's say they have an injury with sports, or let's say this job or this. I've seen it countless of times where they don't know how to reinvent themselves. You know why? Because they were never know how to be in tune. They were never know how to navigate the emotions when something unexpected happened that was beyond their control, because you can't control feminine energy. So they didn't know how to build structure. And this is what you're going to see more and more of as you see a collapse in things systematically and so forth. You're going to realize that these mothers are going to be looking like a fish out of water. You're going to realize like, dang, you had all this. And it's just like, you know how they say people that peak they peak in high school type shit, like, and people don't realize that they'll peak, and again, it's on the surface, they'll peak, but knows there's no depth to them as they grow up. Notice that they still seeking that validation. They still focus on popularity. They still focus on performing. And there's no difference out here in the world. These are the same men. They just dress it up well and so forth. They just dress it up so well. I'm telling you, because I've experienced it, I lived through it. I did it. And this ain't even about it's exposing the hidden parts of not just self, but the hidden parts of the distorted father. That's all I'm exposing. And I'm not concerned about, dude, man, he don't know what he talking about. He don't know, You know why they don't feel threatened? It's because their foundations are threatened. It'll shatter their illusion. Most importantly, it'll bring you to a clarity, something to click within you, or this video or certain things, whenever you hear that resonates, my intuition served me correctly. And that's what you're going to see again as the energy collectively is going to show in the men, and then it's going to trickle down to, let's say, if they have daughters. If they're not aware of their actions, it's going to happen through their daughters, their sons, and then if they have a spouse and so forth, it's going to also reveal to what y'all have been enabling as women. So that's how deep it goes. It's like, again, deep. Man, when they haven't, again, a lot of men don't have a real inner identity. If they are not in tune with the feminine archetype, then eventually that flow, that thing that they're just getting by on, and that's why you see so much of the uncertainty comes in. Notice how they just rush into things. And notice how they chasing the bag. They got to get money. They got to do this. And then even with that, how they display it is a way of performance. And you know to the depths of you, any woman who knows themselves, that met themselves deeper, you know that shit means nothing. Because once you start looking at spiritual currency, you start to realize that starts with you first as a woman. What you give your energy to, how you water that man, what are you supporting him through? What are you giving your energy, paying attention? What are you pouring into? We look at society, what have our women collectively pouring into? And it can look different. You supported a racist and his business, knowing that he didn't like darker people, indigenous people. So now his karma can be the fact of, now that all these things are being exposed, and now that the tide has shifted, Uno reverse, and now that people who he probably built the business off of, knowing that he didn't care, he cared about their dollar, but he didn't care about them. You didn't either, but you supported it because it supported your lifestyle. Now that a lot of these things happen monetarily in the system and so forth, because again, all of these things were created off feminine energy, feminine archetype, the flow. Most of the men that are supported, whatever social media platform or whatever it is and so forth, they're mostly supported by women. Women are supporting whatever it is, most of the algorithms and all that shit and the flow of stuff. That's a shift of that's the power women have. That they're going to realize, like, y'all have to. And if you're easily influenced, as you're scrolling and do whatever you're doing, you're just going to be teaching your daughters to do the same thing. Like I said, this ain't about overnight and doing things. This is simply about to realize, like, all of the stuff that you have seen in the last 50 years, these last eons, this generations and so forth, y'all gonna realize that a lot of these men, again, that you have enabled, have no sense of inner identity. All the things that you thought that was horrible and he shouldn't be in tune and so forth, I told you, you're gonna be seeking that. Watch. Because you're going to realize there's no depth to them. Only thing they can lead with is sex. Like I was telling some young men today, I played basketball with them, and it's just like I give them the real and raw. They were like last year, so-called high school and all that other stuff, and I'm chopping it up with them. And I just had to give them real to them, like I'm talking to them like a father. I said, listen, I know y'all got this stuff going for yourself. And all this, just know that's what's in your pants. That stuff that come out of there, that can create a baby. Be mindful. You gotta realize a lot of these young boys have never had like authentic talks with other men. No, because when you see how immature and undeveloped men have been emotionally, these are the men who never evolved past. They don't prioritize really being not just a family man, but a man that stands in integrity. That's not integrity if you convince your children to run the streets, not holding them accountable, or letting them know the truth about, like, how important self-love is, self-care is, discipline and life balance. y'all gotta realize, like, it's coming to a point, y'all gotta realize, like, all that street shit and all that other stuff, because there's a shift in power, bro. All of the celebrities, all the people, artists, whatever it is, again, for them, no matter women or men, for them to even say they won't even let their own children listen to certain music, but they'll get paid through pushing the shit to your children, you know, again, to keep them at a lower state, to keep them in a place of not really becoming in tune or becoming more aware of the power that they truly have. So again, a lot of this is going to be displayed in a lot of men who, again, you will see this, the lack of emotional intelligence naturally, depending on, let's say you grew up in the trenches, you will see that a lot of these men didn't choose to heal. The first thing they probably do is when they haven't faced a lot of things dealing with their emotions, if they have had issues with their mother and father or something, they'll make every excuse to really change. And I don't mean just like, you know, the men that go out here and work and do all this other stuff and do da. But you will see through their actions how they just show up for certain things. How they, you know, to where they'll prioritize certain things. And again, it's certain things where, again, they are not in tune to where they feel like they need to evolve past the way how they think, how they move. There's a lot of blockages. They can only lead with money. They can only lead with sex. They can only lead with things that doesn't truly reflect honoring their inner identity. Because some of them never had one. Some of them never developed one. That's why a lot of their failed relationships or certain things have to do with the failed relationship beginning with the first relationship that they ever had. And that's whether with a mother or father. Some of them, y'all gotta realize that's what their failed relationship that they continue to carry. That's what a mother wound does and a father wound does too. That fair relationships, or this idea of it gotta be perfect or it gotta be this, and there's a lot of shit, it's just surface, it's just superficial. It's not really things that are rooted in the importance of what actually feminine archetypes and feminine principles are. And that's what you're just gonna see. Like I said, it doesn't matter how much money they have, status and so forth. You're gonna see how a lot of them don't have a sense of empathy. They weren't given this foundation. That's why they don't care about women. That's why they hate them. That's why they'll do everything to make sure that you don't rise in a relationship. They'll do anything to, sometimes they self-sabotage the relationship. They make sure you don't progress or succeed. I'm telling you shit to where I either seen it, experienced it, or lived it, whether I knew it or not. Yeah, they'll purposely not do for the kids, thinking that it's gonna make their situation better, but they only collecting karma. You know, and you know, my compassion goes out for those mothers who are trying so much, and then having to deal with men who are choosing to stay away, because every woman not the same, and every woman is not a mother. You know, and every woman, some women don't know how to be a mother. That's where, again, grace comes in. Some men don't, once they click, when you realize a lot of men don't know how to be a father. Because for one, they never seen it. And then for a man, it looks different than growing up without a father than a woman growing up without a father. That leaves to a woman that feels first, that leaves her empty and can have her seeking out men in that, from that place of that void or emptiness, and trying to fill it. And typically a lot of that karma plays out. They'll have a son, and even through that, her job still, or I don't like to say job, but her work still isn't finished. Like, because when he comes along, you still now have to learn that you can either smother this boy and not allow him to grow into what he needs to grow through, because he doesn't belong to you. He came through you. And that's why you see a lot of enmeshment and smothering and husbands son, like husbands, women that aren't really like, again, because due to the fair relationship with the father of the child, sometimes they unconsciously just pick up a pattern or unhealthily attach themselves to their son. I'm not saying they don't want success and all this other stuff for them, and usually they it can be displayed differently through how they treat them, but sometimes that mother's still holding resentment. She's still holding resentment to the fact of maybe something in her childhood, maybe something she dealt with her real father, or the father not being there. Sometimes she don't realize like a lot of her patterns or unresolved things in childhood led to that decision of you having that child. I'm telling you from personal experience, I have no shame in accepting that, because that's exactly how, when I look at my children and so forth, there's certain things that show me like, dang, have I done something that my mom and father did? Am I here to see this pattern so it changes? Or, am I here to realize like there's something that has to change about this? There's something that I have to see. There's a learned behavior pattern here. There's something that I'm not seeing, or something's not clicking. And again, how a lot of these things can show up is that, again, when you don't have people who come from generations where empathy has been cast away, like the black sheep in the family, then you don't have, again, from personal experiences, I didn't have a lot of women who knew how to emphasize with me. So that's why I had to learn, like, was very challenging for me, even through where I'm at now, where I had to learn to really emphasize with myself, especially with the mother wound, because what it showed me and revealed to me, not only how I viewed women when I was in that mother wound and looking through it, but when I saw that, as I healed it and healed through it, I start to now have grace for my mother, even through distance, no contact, and more compassion, because I saw how she was treated from her mother. And then I also saw how other women justified it. I also saw how other women in the family, whether she was going through drugs, never like really had empathy for her. Like never really put themselves there. They judged her. They may have had sympathy, but they never really put themselves there to where there was, because, a lot of support through it. It would be like, well, you can go here, you can do this, or I'll do this for you, and that would be it. Support from a distance, but never really supporting that person through it. And this is what has led me to like learn about how the world, or coming in who I am, to realizing how my heart is, and to be mindful and guarded, because of the fact of that comes with lessons, that comes with knowledge, knowing, but wisdom in applying it, because you'll be able to see clearly, just like I had to see how my mom didn't know how to emphasize, so she didn't care how she hurt people. Her words, she didn't care what she said in the heat of the moment. You know what I'm saying? So what that does is that the body keeps a score that sits with people into adulthood. You have men and women who have grew up in, when you look at abuse, this is self-abuse starts first. It's learned behavior, self-sabotaging, self-inflicted wounds. Because what it is, you got some people who have never evolved or tapped into their emotions to where they're 50, 60, 70, whether they're how their religion, their career, their money, whatever it is, they have never really evolved past that trauma. It's still unresolved. So no matter how much they cover it up, there's still that little boy and child in that body that's just going with the flow of life until You know, some of them how, like I'm telling you how I see it displayed to where um, it's like a temper tantrum. I used to see it all the time with my mom. I was like, now I start to realize, like, wow, her behavior was the uncontrollable things and whatever she did and so forth. And again, it was a little girl looking for some type of guidance, some type of support. No one ever, and this is how I realized how I broke the generational training curses. That I always had empathy for her, even as a child, because that's what we normally have as children. We emphasize, we come in with that. Our hearts are like that until our hearts are corrupted by whether the world, society, and or what we incarnated in generationally, what we inherited. And so as people start to come into this enlightenment or start to love on themselves and start to face the very parts of themselves that they didn't like at a point in time and so forth, then that's the beginning of a new age, of a new world, of a lot of things, because you realize that the people who don't want to get along with each other and choose not to are the people who don't have empathy, who are cold, who are stuck and stagnant, and who choose to be who they want to be. And so, yeah. Like I said, I say it all the time, how I see how people have displayed their behavior. I'm like, bro, this makes so much sense why you act the way you act. Like I said, it ain't about being perfect. It ain't about none of that. It's simply like, it makes sense why people act the way they act, man. They really do. You ever seen children, like, when they get a new toy? Oh, look at this, look at this. Look, I got all this. Yeah. Depending on their upbringing, how they were, taught. Like, people were taught to, man, when you start to realize so many things are learned behavior, bro, oh my God, I'll be looking at, oh my God. Like, you won't even be mad at them. Like, you know what, them motherfuckers don't know no better. You know how the old folks say, they don't know no better. Bruh. That's how you gotta start looking at elders and people in the world. They don't know no better. People that, like I said, some people don't even realize this. Let's say a person who grew up in a family who have masked themselves so much to not be racist or have self-hatred and so forth, right? Then you got this one person that come along. They never realized like how much their family was. Sometimes people, they don't know no better. It's what they've been taught and learned. I'm telling you, I met same thing with religion. They don't know anything else. Certain things with other things in life, they don't know anything else. And it's literally like children that have been closed off to the world, closed off to everything else. Then you have some children have been exposed to things very early. They could be like an old soul, typically have this awareness around life more deeper than other people, so they can tend to be more guarded. They can tend to be like, realize like they can be a little protective than a person who, was protected very young. Their mindset would be completely different than a person who wasn't. See, a lot of people that, let's say, grew up with money, grew up with certain things, a lot of y'all don't realize, like, y'all had protection early when other people didn't. It's not judgment. You just had protection when other people didn't. That's how I can see why people got into hustling and doing certain things, is because they had to. Certain people didn't grow up in money and certain things, like, then you had people exposed to that culture, to that lifestyle and so forth. Like I said, I'm gonna have my viewpoint on stuff like that because, again, I've seen it personally how it affected people I love and care about. So Some people will defend the fact of like, defend hustle culture and shit. It's all still just a form of the fact of, there comes a point in time where people are asked to evolve. Like I said, or choose differently. I didn't want to choose that route. That's not me saying I'm better than someone. That's me saying I made better fucking decisions. Because had I went down that route, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. That's just real. That's why you ain't gonna ever hear me encouraging a lot of like these youth to go towards something where I know if I look at my life and I look at my experiences and I realize how much making certain decisions has protected my journey, how my life has really shaped and got much more better through, again, learning discipline, going away from certain behavior patterns and so forth, then let me be an inspiration. But let me also be clear to ones who want to prevent that shit from happening. And that's how I feel like how a lot of people get derailed. They can have a lot of stuff ahead of them, and if they're not discerning or aware, which it does, really, I'm a firm believer. I feel like you can make mistakes. I don't really feel like you can mess it up because there's always some type of opportunity. I don't see people get out of prison, do great things. I don't see people turn around through addictions and so forth. They just turn their life around. So all things are possible. Like I was telling the young guys today, listen, man, y'all young, go through those experiences. Learn from them. I was like, you're going to have people that in life, they're going to eventually reveal who they are. You're going to go through emotions. It's a lot of things. You're going to go through things. Keep a light heart, though. And that's why I realized through a lot of what the power of anger used to be. If you continue to keep, at a time, push media, push certain things, it will keep people feeling like depressed and suppressed at a lower state. Keep them feeling guilty of making, man, it's so much shit, bro, I can go deep into. It can make a child in a certain demographic or a certain place feel like this is all there is. And the only way you can get this is by going through here. I'm telling you, life is so, boy, shit is crazy because it'll have you thinking how crazy it used to be when they say, oh, well, you had to just meet this artist or you got to meet this person in order for you to get big and shit like that. Bro, I felt like all that shit was a trap. All that shit was just a way of luring people in and just to get corrupted. Especially how you see certain people who are being exposed now. Now you start to realize how, again, they were preyed on. I'm a firm believer that a lot of those people who are going through things are still hiding to this day. And eventually they're going to come out because a lot of people are going to connect to those people. They're going to realize they're going to think, because a lot of this shit is just bringing people together. Because their way of being seen is just really performance. A lot of them, I don't give a fuck who they are. They don't live in integrity. They don't. They probably don't even know what it is. They don't live in integrity. A lot of these transits are going to reveal the fact of a lot of them, I told y'all before, want to live normally. A lot of them, when they came into whatever stardom, whatever it is that they do, a lot of them felt like the black sheep as well. They'll never tell you that, but I know. I be tapping in. I'm like, bro, I tell you, some of these people are spiritual as well. Some of these people are looking for a way out as well. It's just like you come into your own family and you go through shit and then you realize, like, well, I gotta get the fuck away from this. I gotta get out of this. Because just because people are a part of what you are seeing on social media or their lifestyle, and you think they're living this life or whatever it is, and you think that they are exempt from karma or lessons, bro. I see a lot of them as little boys and girls and children. I see them as little boys and little girls. Y'all don't know that. Y'all don't know them folks' backstories. Imagine a lot of them. I'm telling you, that's what it is. A lot of them parents just gave them to the industry. A lot of people just fucking sacrificed them to that shit. A lot of them folk. A lot of them folk went in their head first, got exposed to some of these people who was already consumed by Lord knows what. Then now their spirit got corrupted. Because behind all this shit, a lot of stuff, is when you think about the powers that used to be and all this shit, if it ain't through integrity and through righteousness and through purity and through truth and through honesty and building on that, I have no doubt at all that most, if not all of them, have done some shit degraded that has devalued them. I sit back and laugh at the fact of how even some of them can sit back and not say shit, especially when you see what's going on in the world. What I mean by that is like, how can you as an indigenous man or darker man, or whatever status you fucking have, not have any type of empathy on other darker men and not try to speak a message to them, or even the other men around them? It says a lot about people's character and their integrity. I told y'all, this shit is going to be exposed on all levels, bro. None of that shit they done is going to mean nothing. And like I said, once you start to realize a lot of these people have not matured to pass a lot of things that like they're really undeveloped. Their spirits are not clean either. Their hearts are not clean. Like I said, they're looking for a way out, just like you looking for a way out for having to be the black sheep. Some of them are gonna be the black sheep of the industries and in sports and all that other shit. Yep. Just like certain people that, they been exposed, stuff that's been hidden. Like I told y'all before, the same way folks, when you look at the industry, music, and all this other shit, look at it as a family. Policing, all of those stuff, look at it as a dysfunctional family, dog. Somebody in there, whether behind the scenes, represents the fucked up father, the distorted mother, the drunk uncle, and then all the people that are part of those are like kids. They're like little kids running around, performing, and they literally reflect whatever it is and whomever it is around them. They literally reflect whoever is enabling them. They literally reflect. I say they look just like the people and certain people that have been exposed for whatever it is, their behaviors like here lately is no difference than the same people that they protect in their neighborhood. Whether it's a pastor, whether it's somebody and all that, it's no difference. Like the grandma and the other people who do stuff behind the scenes and they in the church. It's no difference than other people who are in the media, who are in the industry, who pay for this stuff, practitioners and all this, it's no different. It's levels to this shit. When they say there's levels, it's levels. And see, again, what most people don't want shattered is they don't want the illusion of the masses. The veil being lifted is the illusion of the spell being cast upon people, to where now the smoke and mirrors are clearing. And so now the desperation and the uncertainty of people's legacy, what they built, their structures, their businesses, and so forth, it's almost like it's up for bid. It's up for sale, or it's like yeah. I don't realize a lot of people are getting evicted in the spirit. God, I think that's what the divine woman said. A lot of people are getting evicted in the spirit, and then they're gonna be evicted out of their positions or whatever, power and so forth. They're gonna get evicted out, and you're gonna see it play out in the physical. I've been seeing a lot of land, all this stuff for sale. It's the same thing. The greed, the gluttony, all this stuff is just revealing the hearts of people. And that is the heart changes for humanity, and people start to emphasize more. Ain't nobody want to hear about how much money you got. Don't nobody want to hear about how many women and how many. All this stuff is just going to start to reveal the predatory behavior behind people. The self-control they don't have. Because as things begin to balance, you're just going to realize like how unstable people really are. Again, a lot of people right now, depending on their age, they are very being that they never had an inner identity, and being in society, the fact of what the divine mother is, or the big mama energy, it's just going to reveal that most in the last era and so forth, they built their identity off the false empowerment of what the feminine archetype was. This is why they never really cared to include children and women. This is why they did the things they did towards the family dynamic, especially the woman, the indigenous woman, other women as well, and their children. And people, what's going to end up happening with that, a lot of you that do watch me, I know who you are, aware of who you are, you're just going to be forgotten about. It's just like a child plays with a new toy. And that's how quickly people are going to be forgotten about. That's what they're afraid of for a lot of people, because, again, when you performance, all these other things, and people starting to see how rigged, and people starting to see how stuff is just for the money, and just for this, and for the fame, and for then it's going to become very clear, like, people going to easily start to walk away from stuff. They're not going to be as easily, they're going to recognize how easily influenced they was, is because they grew up in generations, or they had people around them that did not try to protect them from that innocence of how easily influenced they can be. And so when they realized that, they're gonna start to recognize, like, oh, this is who you are. You start to reflect this distorted mother, this distorted father. It's gonna be, bro, I'm trying to tell you how deep this shit is. It's gonna be so clear that you're gonna start to recognize, like, man, you know what? That person energy remind me of that relationship I was in. That person right there, no matter their status, they really start to remind me of, like, you'll see certain patterns that remind you of, like, that mother energy, that distorted mother and distorted father energy in the people. You're gonna start to realize, as you start to get to know yourself deeper, you're gonna start to realize the hearts of people, no matter beyond their smile. Remember, we grew up in places where you should trust a smile. All that shit like that. Oh, they're so nice. Oh, they'll do right by you, and all of a sudden, whole time, you done been in the care of someone who don't, you not unwanted touching and all this other stuff. And it's how people, some of them that got into the, feel like they got so deep into the industry and so other stuff. They was exposed, bro. You can clearly see the behaviors of people, see what they went through. You can see the energy. You be like, man. That's why I don't be clapping for people down for all this stuff. Folk really be going through shit, bro. A lot of those celebrities or people, I'm using that term celebrities, but a lot of them, bro, listen, they be seeking some support too. A lot of them will. They gonna be needing healing from those very people that they were a part of. Like, bro, that shit deep, bro. Y'all, hey, the same way we went through certain things, folk be going through. It's just not publicized. That's why they make a mockery of it when they see people really going through stuff, and they try to make a mockery of it. All the time, I be seeing it. Not even embarrassing. Well, it can be embarrassing for them, but a lot of them carry the guilt and shame around how they really obtained their success, how they really came into what they came into. And they don't feel like a lot of people will relate or emphasize with them. That's why the Most High sees the heart. Y'all be getting caught up in the material shit. The Most High sees the heart. Again, that's what y'all realize. The Most High sees the heart. Nope. Most High sees the heart. God, dog it. Most High sees the heart. See, we weren't taught that growing up, but a lot of us now, as we start to balance our chakras and learn more about ourselves, we start to realize, like, oh yeah, I most definitely gotta protect myself, guard myself. People want to get close, want to tax themselves and so forth. No, divinely guided, return to sender, or just transmute it, alchemize it, move around. Whew. That's a sense of accomplishment, washing the dishes. But yeah, yeah, man. A lot of those people, bro, they burnt out. They burnt out. They burned out. They burned out. Can you imagine everybody talking about they want fame, and you be seeing them people do all them concerts? Do you know how much energy that is? More than just that. The energy exchange when they're doing it, the performance and all of that other stuff. And then now the shit that's here, all that shit just fading to the back. It's just being real, bro. I gotta lay down now. It's been an experience. I'll take care of y'all. So peace and blessings. Shalom.